The Great Rift split reality like a wound, and its shadow fell across Ultramar. Roboute Guilliman had only just dragged corridors of order through the dark with the Indomitus Crusade when an older enmity stirred. Mortarion, Daemon Primarch of the Death Guard, did not intend to defeat Ultramar with a single blow. He intended to prove that even Guilliman's realm could rot. His fleets did not simply invade, they infected. Diseased hulks went ahead of the main armadas, drifting like carrion birds. Plague moons warped tides and wind. Spores settled on agri-harvests and turned fields into black mulch before a bolter was fired. On shrine worlds, reliquaries sweated oil and blood. On forge worlds, machine spirits whispered in dead tongues. Each minor loss became a vector that vomited sickness into its neighbors, and every reconquest demanded flame, quarantine, and apology. Guilliman recognized the pattern. Mortarion wanted 1,000 small rescues to pull Ultramar apart. The Lord Commander answered with discipline as severe as mercy. He concentrated fleets, wrote hard quarantines around infected systems, and, when countermeasures failed, ordered exterminatus. In councils lit by emergency lumen, he told governors the truth no one wanted. Some worlds could not be saved now. Saving the rest required choices that would be remembered in prayer and bitterness alike. The Plague Wars opened on many fronts. On Parmenio, Manufactoria choked in spore clouds, while Ultramarines of the 3rd and 5th Companies fought knee-deep in slime, learning to dismember and burn Plague Marines that would not stay dead. Along the Relian routes, Void Forts became both lighthouses and crematoria, guiding convoys by day and burning contagion by night. On Ardium, whole Astra Militarum regiments fought behind rebreathers that clogged from the inside. Orders Hospitaller turned cathedra into triage halls and blessed scalpels alongside flamers. Every hour bought by such measures was the measure of a world's survival. Mortarion escalated with sermons disguised as sickness. From the Garden of Nurgle came the Godblight, reducing Space Marines to weeping husks in hours. The joyful congestion, which made lungs bloom into useless flowers. The last gasp that left victims laughing until they drowned. These were not merely diseases, they were arguments that all structures fail, that all order collapses, and that decay is a kind of peace. Ultramar answered with its own doctrine. Apothecaries became field commanders in white, moving with bolter and burner to cut infection chains. Tech priests sanctified austerity. Famine forged engines that ran on bad oil and prayer. Counter-plague incensors the size of hab blocks, purification rites rewritten as maintenance schedules. The chapters of Ultramar learned quarantine as seriously as breach. Seal, scour, account, move. Guilliman promoted logisticians to the rank where schedules could win battles, and he gave chaplains words that married courage to hygiene without shame. The war's center of gravity shifted to Ajax, a garden world and a symbol of everything Ultramar claimed to be. To corrupt Ajax was to announce that ideals are simply fruit waiting to spoil. The Death Guard descended in weather that looked like regret. Plague-burst crawlers pounded the walls. Mephistic blight haulers slewed through plazas, extruding ropes of slime that sprouted teeth. Great unclean ones waddled through parks whose paths remembered children's feet. The defenders were a patchwork held together by discipline. Ultramarine line companies, newly raised primarists from torchbearer stock, Macragge PDF hardened by necessity, guard banners that smelled of incense and antifungal spray. Guilliman entered the Ajax campaign as both general and symbol. Clad in the armor of fate and bearing the Emperor's sword, he struck at contagion links, cut down daemon engines whose names were prayers in a tongue no man should speak, and rethreaded supply through streets still hot with promethium. In his wake, water ran clear and orders made sense. But even a Primarch cannot be everywhere. Mortarion's will soaked the sky. Vox channels turned to laughter at the worst moments. Munitions depots found themselves stocked with the right shells on the wrong day. Elsewhere, smaller epics decided whether the map would hold. In the Nakmund-adjacent marches, Starfort crews dwindled by squads each week, yet kept the lanes open. In the Xiphos cluster, rogue traders earned sainthood or execution on alternate days, smuggling vaccines and promethium through storms that erased months from memory. Night households anchored refugee lines and learned that the weight of 1 million civilians can bend a vow. Sisters of Silence established quarantine monasteries on gray moons and taught silence to be another kind of medicine. Where the Astronomicon failed, beacon ships dragged their own dawn behind them, burning themselves out so that worlds could be warned, evacuated, or avenged. Mortarion himself came to Ajax. He descended through clouds that rained worms and resignation, a silhouette against a sick sun, scythe in hand, wings like torn sails. He did not come to conquer in a day. He came to make hope itself septic. Guilliman met him on ground that had been a plaza, then a trench, then a charnel hill. Their duel was the long argument of two lives, discipline against spite, duty against contempt. Silence, the scythe, cut air that screamed. Each wound Mortarion took closed with a gush of blessed filth. The Emperor's sword burned not only flesh, but the ideas poured into the wound by a laughing god. The battle around them became an hourglass. Primarch squads locked firing lines and died on their feet rather than yield a step. Daemons spilled as if shaken from a jar. Reports speak of air that thickened until words weighed ounces. In that suffocating moment, Guilliman chose the living over the picture. He ordered a retreat that was not a rout and made it true by standing last. Ajax fell, not to flame, but to corruption. Gardens became fungal towers, statues sweated rust and devotion. The city clock chimed with laughter on the hour. The loss did not break Ultramar, it hardened it. Guilliman tightened the cordon, formalized plague isolation protocols for every chapter in Reach, and moved the war to a tempo that despair could not match. Campaign names multiplied, the cleansing of Parmenio's foundries, the black harvest on Conor's Rimward's farms, the sanctification of the Relian arches, the defense of Gathalamar, where sermons became artillery and artillery became sermons. Death Guard admirals learned to feint with disease and strike with iron. Imperial commanders learned to feint with iron and strike with supply. Civilians learned their part in the litany. Hab blocks organized bucket brigades and scripture circles with equal seriousness. Priests blessed water as often as weapons. Administratum clerks, sworn enemies of brevity, learned to sign in red ink when seconds mattered. Astartes, bred for offense, learned the valor of delay, how to save a city by holding a bridge exactly long enough and not a heartbeat more. Ultramar discovered that hope often looks like a logistician who knows your children's names and your train's arrival time. Mortarion never sought total conquest. He sought to prove that rot is patient and victory is a matter of waiting. He proved it often. Yet, patience can be outlasted by motion. Guilliman refused to let the map become a confession. Ports reopened with rules written in blood and reason. Worlds once written off relit their hives, one sector at a time. Quarantine moons became places where Orders Hospitaller learned null rituals from the sisters, and tech priests learned bedside manner from nuns who could field strip a flamer.
The Plague Wars did not end with a parade. They ended the way long wars end in the Age of the Rift, with a map that is less bad than it was yesterday, and men who understand what that means. Ajax remained a shrine to corruption and a warning, contested in symbol, if not in soil. Ultramar stood, altered, stubborn, unbroken. Mortarion retreated when it suited him and returned when it amused him, his contempt intact. Guilliman turned to the next necessity with the same expression he wore when he ordered cities burned. A man who knows that tragedy is not an alibi. What did Ultramar learn? That ideology rots fastest when it forgets to eat. That discipline is mercy stretched over time. That clean water delivered on time can be an act of worship. Mortarion's sermon of despair reached far and sounded true for a while. Ultramar answered with a litany of work. In the end, that is how rot is beaten. With fire where needed, but more often with the decision to keep building in the smoke. And so, the Plague Wars pass into record. Somewhere on Ajax, a fungus tower sheds spores into a dead wind. Somewhere above Macrage, a convoy translates in, holds formation, and delivers everything on its manifest. Between those facts, a realm exists. Between Mortarion's laughter and Guilliman's orders, humanity finds room to breathe and to fight again tomorrow.